But on top of that, they have program people that are experts in the fields that they are in. With George Bomba's on this call. He's a former member of the CCU, but even at the military buildup office, focusing in on on all of the need for expanded infrastructure and improvements for the outside the fence, knowing what's going on inside the fence, and so on. So it is an effort to try and integrate that. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass this on to Dr. Shelton.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I have nothing to add to your instructions. I think we can move to the chairs or the co-chairs of our topic of the day, the team focused on sustainable homes, utilities, and transportation. So I think I saw Brent on the line.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Vince Ariola, if he is here as well. All right, all yours, Brent. Thank you.
All right. So I think I was by default picked by my team to present. So should I share my screen so you can see the worksheet?
Sure, let me give you permission to share.
Should be able to now.
Okay. All right. Start from the beginning. So, Lauren, I have a question. When I sent you, all the formatting was clean, but I'm seeing stuff with green font and boxes with green backgrounds. Was that something you guys did later on to highlight something?
I believe that the green font was a product of when we were using that as like the working template. So I think there were some reasons why the font was green, meaning that someone else had suggested those items. All of this was cleaned up and formatted for the framework that was presented and signed.
Okay.
So if these are fine, we could go ahead and say that they're okay. The ones that are highlighted in green are the ones that have overlaps with other teams or other categories of action. As you can see in column G, it says intersections. So the idea is that since there might be some overlap, to figure out who will be the best team or action lead to move these actions and goals forward.
Great.
So who would take the most ownership and or how coordination can be best figured out.
Thank you. So
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was just trying to figure out if there was some meaning here, and there is. I missed last week's meeting, and I was there for the first one, but I wasn't totally there. I've been ill, so I'm back in the office. So I'm not sure if we really need to go item by item and read them, since everyone can read it and has probably been through this, but we can go through the highlights of these and see what it is that is critical. Infrastructure and buildings. 30% of the critical infrastructure should be relocated away from flood areas or low-lying areas. This is also an issue in dealing with Department of Homeland Security, because they are now working with a FEMA directive. And so they're asking for Guam, or asking everybody, all the states and territories, to update their building codes and land use codes to address this. So this is something that's actually going to have a different route. We talked about priority recommendations, climate change vulnerability assessment, percentage of infrastructure relocated from low-lying areas. So this is going to have some new energy because of the requirements of FEMA. And so
this is Brett, Brent, this is the National Flood Insurance Program.
Well, no, it's actually more than that. FEMA came out with a directive saying for funding in case of events, catastrophic events, it would be based on certain criteria. One is you've addressed this issue in your building and land use codes. So my response back to Homeland Security was, sounds like we need to get land management and DPW, because they're the ones reviewing flood areas now, and the Building Code Council together and review this. So this is something that just popped up just like 2 days ago.
And then I think, Brent, we would also probably want to put in the Coastal Zone Management Program of Bureau of Statistics and Plans, which is, you know,
Yes.
there's and just so you know, and maybe when we convene that meeting, let me know how that goes and if I can be helpful on that, Brent, to make sure that all the agencies are being responsive to the council. But you know, there is a remapping study that that FEMA is undertaking with the Army Corps for the floodplain in Hagatna, which is obviously part of that. But go ahead, Brent. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's great. And I appreciate the offer, because it may take a little quarterbacking to get everyone all on the same page. Mostly it's going to be looking at under whose jurisdiction does the recommendations fall, and then looking at what those recommendations would be. So 2030 mitigation measures to implement address impacts of flooding, update Guam disaster preparedness plan to include climate change impacts, nor weatherized buildings and homes, floods per year. So this is the metrics, and then Banji Lujan is the action lead with this. Again, different groups are coming in from different areas. So the Society of American Military Engineers, the Guam Society of Professional Engineers, the American Institute of Architects, all have charges within their organization to work with local agencies on disaster preparedness and mitigation after disaster. And so we've been again in touch with Homeland Security about how we want to handle this, because the idea is a typhoon hits or an earthquake hits, Guam doesn't have the resources to go out and inspect buildings right away to say they're safe, you can enter this building or not. And ultimately that's the goal. If it's that severe an earthquake, you need somebody to get out there and say, it's okay, you can enter the building, or nope, put the tape all around it, nobody gets in until we can get some engineers and determine how unsafe the building is. So the idea is all these engineers and architects would be working with Homeland Security in such an event. So you'd have these resources. All these engineers and architects would be supplementing the government team to review these projects. And so, but there's a process, and so we need to dig into that process to how to make that happen. So this goes beyond what you're seeing in here on the spreadsheet for your information. How do I do this? Okay, here we go. So by 2023, building permits require adaptive measures to address climate change. So this is part of what we were talking about earlier. This is a long-term project. Right now, we're working to get the building codes updated to 2018. And so that will actually better prepare the island for both seismic and typhoon events. But it doesn't actually address climate change impact. And so that's where the survey from FEMA is going to be helpful, or Army Corps will be helpful. And then we can, once we see what the problems are, And then we can be more progressive in terms of how to react to that in terms of code or land use requirements. Okay, so any questions on infrastructure? All right, moving on. This next is waste. Oops, sorry. 2030 ensures sustainable production, consumption, disposal patterns. This is big with UOG and the cycle of life. And so we have zero waste bill passed in 2021. That's a goal, and coordinating with DOD on waste management alignment. So I'm not sure who would be the action for the zero waste bill. And if that's somebody that we work with the legislature.
Well, you know, we have a zero waste, the governor impaneled a commission or task force that is focused on zero waste. And I think that I know Conchita is on this call, but I would say there's a double intersect. I think that's one. We probably definitely want to, you know, I know the governor wants to provide leadership on that. And just so you know, even me at the Island-Wide Beautification Task Force, which the legislature amended the statute and is asking us to address illegal dumping and et cetera. And obviously those are all in symmetry, but the discussion I'm having at the task force also is coming up and sending some legislation over and kind of like following the path of the renewable energy side, where even though it's complicated to try and get to universal collection, but I think that having a mandate and a timeline that we want zero universal collection to start and then work our backwards to get that going is kind of like the path that I'd like to see. So just for your information, Brent, and I know Vince Ariola is on the beautification task force. We're gonna want to play a role on this, and it is my feeling right now. I mean, we'll talk it out and work with your subcommittee. You know, I mean, with regards to solid waste, at the very minimum, I'd like to come up with a reasonable timeline that we would ask the legislature to mandate universal trash collection, and then work our way backwards with the Solid Waste Authority and the other players that be to kind of get that going. But I know you're really focused on, but zero waste, obviously, you know, the question about submitting legislation for sure. I think that something that we'd like to send over to the legislature and get the support and get it passed.
So what group would take the lead?
So I think maybe what you should do is, I think you should leave it in Guam EPA side,
Okay.
and then they'll be the front for the executive branch and
Right.
coordinate the governor's office.
Thank you.
But I'd like you to add on as a smart objective, you know, just about mandating or setting up a deadline for universal trash collection. I mean, we can work that out in terms of the specifics, but I definitely want to see that integrated here because Governor and I both feel strongly that that's one missing element in the entire solid waste program on Guam.
Great. Thank you. So noted. All right. So again, zero waste guidelines. So this is where to greatly reduce single-use plastics. So we talk about plastics and styrofoam. And right now we have the lead is BSP, GCMP, UOGCIS. Maybe Lauren, you can help. Are you familiar with?
I think that this might have been a goal that was originally proposed by Thriving Natural Resources, as well as the team before it was reorganized that included the industry and infrastructure.
So should it keep in this hut or should it move to the other group?
Well, so that was the question. So it deals with the component of waste, but it's for an environmental objective.
Yep.
So it's up to you guys to
Oh,
determine who should figure out whose purview this should fall under.
okay. Vince, do you have any input?
I don't see Vince on, but Rebecca Respicio is
Oh.
on as well.
Okay. Okay, so we just need to work out where this best fits. Because like the styrofoam, I know one of the current senators was pushing limits on this, but it never really came out. And I don't think she ran for re-election. So we need a new champion for styrofoam.
Well, I'm looking at, Brent, the metric there for the second item, reduce the use of plastics and styrofoam in households. There is an activity that says ban the use of single-use plastic bags.
Yep.
So that's something that's going to happen in January, and that would be a great metric to track. Perhaps finding the overall reduction in plastic bags. But since that's not listed, I think we should add that in because that's a nice, easy metric that we'll be able to track going forward starting next year.
So in January, you think it's legislation that's coming?
The law is already has been passed.
Oh, the current law.
Update to the law right now in the current legislature, trying to take out a couple of loopholes. Or
Okay.
so for biodegradable plastic bags and paper bags, that's
Right.
Those are being cut out of the legislation. So we'll see if that passes before the end of the year in time for the January implementation. But for sure, plastics are already, the plastic bag ban is already on the books to start next.
All right. Yeah, work with legislators to ban single-use expanded polystyrene styrofoam. So this is really what we need. We'll need a lead. So we'll need a champion. We'll have to find a champion. Increase the amount of composting, develop rules and regulations. This is DOA, Department of Ag, and iRecycle. I get lectured by my daughter about this every day. Just so you know. Food waste and organic materials diversion from landfill. Expansion of food waste recovery programs, increased participation of government, private sector, and community from diverting organic waste from landfill. But I don't know who SFP is.
That is Sabina Flores Perez.
Ah,
I think this is also on the zero. I think all of these also would be part of the zero waste initiative. Is Conchita still on this call? Conchita, do you think you can, I mean, can we just pause a minute? And I
Sure.
think these would be focus areas that your task force is actively pushing, correct?
That is correct, Lieutenant Governor. That is correct.
So I'd say in terms of executive action, I think Senator Perez for sure on policy, but with regards to implementation, definitely I think the lead agency should be Guam EPA.
Yes.
Since they are, since they and Bureau of Planning actually are the lead on zero waste.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. So, you know, some of the, all of the items that's under zero waste is being addressed under Guam EPA's contract with Jacobs Engineering.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, so that's where that came from. So
Okay.
really, if I were to, you know, hazard or offer a, you know, a lead, it'll probably be, I would say I'd start off with Guam EPA, as the Lieutenant Governor had mentioned earlier.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on waste? Okay, we'll move to transportation. So reduce the number of vehicles on the road, update Guam Transit Business Plan, UG to work GRTA to understand goals, and then it's really GRTA, UOG, CIS, but it's also doing the same for the other Guam Community College, and there was the Trades Academy. So to capture as many students as possible with mass transit. So this is all green, Lauren. So who we need to coordinate with this?
Well, some of it was in alignment with some of the goals with healthy and prosperous communities.
Okay.
But they have since given those goals over to Educated, Capable, and Compassionate Island. And these are goals relating to job trainings and accessibility to training programs. So with this, because public transportation is involved, but also is education. So there's an overlap and some, I think, collaboration that should be written out.
Okay.
Hey, Brent, I'll just add that Sel Babalta from GRTA is in the Zoom room, but as I understand it, he's about to initiate a planning process that is like that. Obviously, these things should be part of it. But Sel, did you have anything to add? I know that he actually has been. He's also, if I'm not mistaken, he has secured federal funds to acquire electric buses and et cetera. So I think that there are a few more things that can be worked out, Brent, with and aligned with what GRTA is actively doing, and that of course would lead to metric that we'd be able to track. But Sel, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yes, Lieutenant Governor, as you know, we were able to successfully compete on a competitive grant that got us $9.5 million. And really the main essence of that $9 million, that grant is to build a park and ride up at Dedido, the former flea market. And the reason for that is because Dedido, Jigu, Anderson, and the soon to come Ben Blas Marine Corps Base, that's really 1/3 of the population of Guam. So we put together a grant application to build a park and ride facility up at the former flea market. And then on that grant, we proposed to purchase 8 electric buses, 40-footers carrying 38 riders. We also included 8 electric cars. And the reason for the electric cars is because should there be a rider who needs transportation to go to the park and ride facility, they can download the app and schedule their rides, and somebody will come by, pick that person up, drop them off at the park and ride, get on the bus and head on to UOG, GCC, George Washington, Father Duenas, and the Trades Academy. And this is the first phase of 3 other phases that we plan to implement. But because those areas are the most populated in Guam, we decided to go and put that plan together. So in essence, when all is done with the park and ride, We'll have students and staff of University of Guam, GCC, GW, Father Duenas, and Traits Academy. They can hop on that bus and head on up to, hop on the electric bus at the park and ride and head on up to those areas. And that way, several reasons. One, we'll be able to accommodate our students who don't have transportation. Secondly, staff and faculty of UOG, GCC will be able to hop on that. And of course, then Lieutenant Governor, we can begin to look at using transit to transport some of our students, So it's kind of like a win-win situation for a multifaceted group of target populations.
How far along are you in the design and construction of your new facility?
Sure, Brent, let me tell you that, we've been doing some studying and there's a tremendous amount of planning and analysis and planning and putting together a good park and ride and electrification vehicles. So we have finalized our Guam Transportation Improvement Plan with FTA. And hopefully by the end of the month, we'll be able to submit our application on TRAM's Transit Resource and Management System for FTA to review and approve. Once that's approved, we can begin to spend the money, the $9.5 million. But our first phase of that is to really work with a professional planning group to help us again analyze and plan out to make sure that we do this right the first time. This is the first experience that Guam is going to have with electric vehicles, and we want to do this. I know the governor, the lieutenant governor, are very interested in making sure that we do this right the first time.
Good.
So that's what we're looking at doing.
Also, your headquarters is being designed and constructed. How far are you on that?
We are 30% designed on our facility. Once Vince Ariola is done clearing the site, I know Zen and Ballinger and his team of engineers, we're working together to expedite the design. We're hoping that the 60% design will be done maybe within the next month. And Lieutenant Governor, our goal is to put the shovels on the ground by the first quarter of 2021. And that facility is going to allow us to have a maintenance facility that's going to provide us with the infrastructure for electric vehicles. We're going to have, of course, our administration and finance under one roof. So be able to clearly lead and manage our transit system in Guam.
Now, so there's a smaller project that I wonder whether or not should be an action item here, since it's going to, and last year, I know it's pre-pandemic, you had a consultant that has been working to place some technology on the buses that would be able to, I guess, there'll be an app, as I understood it, riders would be able to track the progress of their buses en route to them so that they could have a realistic understanding, kind of to help with the reliability, I guess, of the transportation. Is that still something that you are working on?
Yes, Lieutenant Governor. And Brent, the project that we're going to be doing up at Dedido with the park and ride, technology will also be included on that project. So electric buses, electric vehicles, park and ride technology, Lieutenant Governor, similar to what you're talking about. That technology that you're mentioning, actually, I'm proud to say that we are activating that system currently. We're training our people. As a matter of fact, within the next couple of days, we're going to be doing some live usage of that technology. And you're right, the riders are going to be able to download the app, customize their rides, and they can schedule up to 14 days in advance. Night before, they'll be contacted, telling the rider that, hey, you have a ride tomorrow. If you plan to stay on that ride, that'd be fine. But if you plan to cancel, you can cancel now. Now, 45 minutes before that person gets picked up, the technology will contact that person, letting that person know that, hey, your ride will be there in 45 minutes. You got to get ready. And but yes, Lieutenant Governor, that technology is ongoing, and we plan to fully activate that technology before the end of the year. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that's not here, we won another grant, the Accelerated Innovative and Mobility Technology
Okay. That
program.
G3
If
thing.
you have time, I can talk about that. I can talk
Well,
about it
DO,
later.
I can't get into, I'm doing this G3 first.
Okay,
Hey,
okay, okay.
You
That's,
need to go on mute. Cell starting.
anyways, that's exciting. That project is exciting too.
Okay,
Great,
Brent,
thank
sorry
you.
to cut into your time. Go ahead.
Okay. Then we get into bikes. Bike lanes, electrical vehicle charging, GPA, expand pedestrian sidewalks, DPW. So these are all nice to have. I'm not sure how this is going to get driven though. Port of Guam, Greenport. Yeah.
So Brent,
So-
if these in some cases from the working groups, these are initiatives that the agencies are doing. So what we
Okay.
envision is that you will be able to at least get reports on their progress from the agencies, and from a big picture, we'd be able to see them all concurrently in this process.
Okay.
But of course, if there are things that your working group recommended that don't have an agency, then that would mean that we'd be concerned about having a proponent or an act, somebody to act.
Okay. Okay. And I see Vince is on the call, so I know who to bug at DPW. Hello, Vince.
Brent, how are you?
Good. All right. Okay, next is housing. Relocate low-income housing and out of substandard homes into affordable housing. This is GURA. 90% of the families who've been adequate or affordable weatherproof housing. CCRC. Breakthrough new construction totally sustainable code. So right now the Guam Tropical Energy Code was submitted to the legislature and it is going through review. So that's good news. So we are making progress on the building code, on the Tropical Energy Code. So the intersections are with healthy and prosperous communities, Lauren. So we just need to work with them to see where this best fits.
Yes, because some of their goals pertain to poverty
Okay.
and that are serving the homeless population or houseless population.
Okay. Thank you. And you sent out a list of who's leading these groups, so I know who to contact.
Yes, and if you like, I
Okay.
could send that out again since
No,
there has been some updates. I'll send
I'm-
out the names with the emails.
Okay, I'm sure I have it somewhere. Okay, next is water. So water, this was vetted through Guam Waterworks Authority. So what you're seeing is their latest review of all this. Most of this they've already are working on.
Yeah, that's right, Brent. If there's any questions on these, I can try to field them.
Miguel,
Hello.
haven't seen you in a bit.
Been keeping busy.
Yeah, I bet. No, I think, no, you did a great job cleaning this up. So I appreciate that. Any questions about water? There was one about reducing number of spills, overflows, and wastewater systems. Further discussion needed on metrics. Is this
Okay.
something you guys are working on right now to
Yes,
dial in?
we have existing metrics. We report on this to EPA on a periodic basis, federal EPA on a periodic basis. The SSOs are actually one of the subjects of discussion currently with our compliance negotiations that we're undertaking for a potential consent decree. So we're keeping a close eye on it, and we have in our capital improvement program already work that is scheduled for the collection system to address specific pipelines and pump stations which contribute to these overflows.
Got
So have the metrics to report on it, and we can do that going forward on a regular basis.
Okay.
For maybe one other item to touch on with regard to the affordable water supply and reducing water losses, was on a marathon work session with the Public Utilities Commission consultants this morning regarding these two topics. We are currently conducting an affordability study, which will be completed towards the end of the calendar year. And it will make recommendations on providing a customer assistance program for the most vulnerable population of our ratepayer base. So that addresses the affordability issue. And we're also undertaking simultaneously the development of a comprehensive water loss reduction program. We've started the work on that already. It also is slated for completion the beginning of next year, and will include reconfiguration of our distribution system to install specific district metered areas. So we take our existing distribution system and break it down into areas where we can actually track water loss within those specific areas and then focus our efforts on reducing it. So that study is underway, will be completed, and it will contain an implementation plan and spell out, the amount of capital investment we're going to need to implement that. So those are also being worked on as we speak.
So, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, this guy needs a raise. I mean, these guys are doing fantastic work at GWA.
I was going to say that GWA has just gone from, into a high performing public utility. I had a chance to see the excellent work down south and the technology that they're using now for wastewater treatment. And, there's a compelling need for us now to kind of help them and shepherd oversight back into the north with the aquifer. And I know they've been doing a great job with their plant up there, but really, and this is something I think that George Bamba, I've asked him to take a look at it. Last year, Joey Duenas and George Bamba and I met just talking about the wastewater situation up north and trying to come up with a reasonable strategy to try and push some infrastructure money up there. And so there's some different ideas that we're looking at, but I think that there has to be, I'm trying to figure out how we are able to wrap that into what we're doing, because that seems to be the biggest threat that we have to our island. And that's the reason why I just wanted to point out that we have George on this group so we can keep an eye on it. We even tried, there was a long shot, we tried to get a pot of money available from DOD for outside the fence stuff, but we weren't able to connect the dots. But it's something that, we'd like to push, and I think that's going to be the next front for our partnership with Waterworks for sure.
Good.
Do you have anything to add, George, on that one?
Yeah, actually, Gov, we've had discussions. Of course, by meeting with Joey, myself, but then subsequent to that, we've been discussing this with Joey, and I guess the fundamental issue for Waterworks is, the investment capital that's required, because there are legal impediments to using the waterworks funds, which are rate generated for specific areas. I mean, it has to be equitable all around. And so we've been trying to figure that out, and we've been working with. Actually, we did talk to Gita, and to explore alternatives to being able to, for the individual owners to be able to hook up systems. Waterworks is very concerned about it, of course, as we all are, because of the aquifer. And unfortunately, when we tried to sell the idea to DOD, we did it on the basis that the aquifer serves, including the military, so it's in their best interest to protect it. But there had to be a direct nexus to the actual buildup itself. So they went along and provided funds, capital funds for infrastructure funds for monitoring and improvement our water wells, and on the northern aquifer, we have water. What do you call that? Those monitoring wells, and also in addition to, of course, GWA's requirements, also they provided a lot of money to GPA in the renewable area. For we did sign a contract with the PACOM to be able to implement or to contract, and they in essence will be using GPA as their contract managers for all their renewable requirements for that the Navy, the DoD has to implement. So that's ongoing now. So it's there's been a lot of investments in those two areas, but we obviously need a lot more to be able to provide direct benefits to, like in particular, the subdivisions up there, or those areas that don't have wastewater systems, installed. So we're trying to work that out, and hopefully we can come up with a solution that will not adversely impact financially the any of the potential or the residences themselves.
Couple other things that I'd add to that, Commissioner Bamba.
Yeah.
We do currently have a septic tank elimination system or elimination program that's part of our 5-year CIP and also included in our 20-year master plan. We're working on the study for that right now, and it will include recommendations to streamline the rules surrounding our sewer connection revolving fund, so we can make it easier for residents who aren't connected to get connected. Currently, that program requires you have to be rejected by 3 other banks before you can come to us for money. We're trying to eliminate that. And we're also trying to expand the amount of money in the revolving fund using system development charges, so that can be increase the money available for residents to take advantage of that low interest loan fund. The other thing we've done is we've just completed a $30 million project to tighten up the main sewer line that runs along Route 3, bringing wastewater to the Northern District plant. And as you know, that's part of a $173 million DoD grant we got for upgrading our northern wastewater system, including upgrades to the plant, which are currently under construction. And then the final thing I'll mention is we also are working on implementing putting in 5,000 feet of new sewer line in areas above the northern aquifer. That's also included in our 5-year CIP. So we got a couple more years to do the groundwork for that. But then after that, our target is to put in 5,000 linear feet of new sewer every year to try and expand the collection system and get people off of septic. So we feel that GWA is doing our part to try and promote that and get more people off of septic systems and to protect the northern lens aquifer, which explains our support for what seems to be pretty controversial bill right now to eliminate the loophole that's created by the parental subdivision law. So we know it's a tough topic, but we do think it's the right thing to do, and we're doing our part to try and help correct that situation.
That was a subject of a hearing, I think, last week or the week prior to that, huh, Miguel?
Yes, sir.
So there is, and just so you know, on a related topic, there is a bill that's going to be heard, I think it's tomorrow. And Senator Regine Bisco-Lee has been working with, she asked my office if we would be willing to lead a mandate. And that really is to kind of reconcile amongst the government agencies how whether or not the feasibility of creating a groundwater conservation area on GovGuam properties that are in the overlay or directly over the northern Guam land. So different things on water policy. So what I want to do, Brent, I know we have just a little bit more time. We have power coming up. And I just want to tell Javen and Boss that our youth ambassadors in our committee here that we're going to go ahead and take your questions after we get through the power and renewable energy portion, if that's okay. So go ahead, Brent.
Okay. One more thing on water. With the review of the building codes, the building code development's very dependent on fire sprinklers. So the island getting up to speed on pressure and volume to supply fire sprinkler systems is a huge deal. And so, and I tease Mr. Bordallo about this from time to time, but so this is something that we're going to have to address in the codes as well. So, all right. Anything else on water? We'll move to power.
Nothing else for me.
Thank you. Okay.
And Brent, I just point out, I know that Tracy Limtiaco from Guam Power Authority is also on in the Zoom room. So can go ahead and proceed.
Perfect. Okay. So 2020 Guam developed an energy policy with Hawaii's clean energy transformation. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Hawaii, but their power rate structure is way worse than Guam's. Power is very expensive. And so the motivation for them to go to clean energy was huge, especially photovoltaic systems, private systems, business systems, because it was just the power out there was so expensive. We've been lucky that the cost of oil has dropped. And so haven't had to, if you've been watching, it's been escalating and escalating, and all of a sudden just dropped. But if it had kept escalating, we would be in the same boat as Hawaii. So this is good proactive work that this happens. Let's see, healthy and prosperous communities. And thriving natural resources. Okay, so we'll just have to coordinate with these groups.
I have something, Brent, and I wanted to, Tracy, you're still on the call, right?
I'm here, sir.
You know, lately I've been having, and I'm looping in Dr. Shelton tomorrow on a call that I'm having. And maybe after this, I'll send you a link. Recently, I've been in conversation with both the U.S. Department of Interior and the U.S. Department of Energy. So I was very pleased to find out that there is a project that Guam Power Authority is working on. I believe the Alaska Telephone and Power Authority is working on it with the U.S. Department of Energy, and I think focused on critical infrastructure. And I wondered whether or not you had there's a project going on, I think, right, Tracy?
Well, we have a couple of projects, but I am not aware of one that specifically involves Alaska Telephone and Power.
I think the two projects for Department of Energy, and it's Jennifer DeCesaro that mentioned it to me. I think maybe you're not working on it together. I think they might have two projects, one project in Guam and one project in Alaska. But what is the project on Guam? It has to do with critical infrastructure, is it?
Well, we are critical infrastructure for.
I guess you're right. You are.
So we are working with with US DOE and DOI. We are in communication with Basil Otley and
Right.
Jennifer from DOE.
I'm
Uh,
sorry,
they're-
it's the Energy Transitions Initiative Frontier Project.
Okay, okay. So I think I am not prepared to speak on that today.
Okay. No, I just wanted you to make sure that we wanted to recognize that with what we're doing. I guess Guam Power Authority is a demonstration site. I'm telling you this because the Department of Energy wants to work with us. Rebecca Respicio, who's from Guam Energy, she obviously is holding the energy master plan, which I would think probably needs to be refreshed or updated. But as I understand it, and just so you know, there's interest from the Department of Interior, at least for the government of Guam, to go in and do an energy audit of our public facilities. So I'll speak with Mr. Benavente, but I'm planning on on facilitating or doing a virtual meeting with U.S. Department of Interior and U.S. Department of the Energy. There was a model, Brent, and it's related to what's been going on in the state of Hawaii. I believe that the state of Hawaii and the U.S. Virgin Islands both benefited from some engagement with the Department of Interior and Department of Energy. And so bottom line is that they've been made aware, or the Department of Interior is aware of some of the renewable energy project advocacy we have, especially with the Guam Department of Education and probably with our other public facilities. So, I just wanted to mention it, and I'll make contact with you guys, but I'm probably gonna have, and maybe Brent will work together with the council on probably an engagement with the U.S. Department of Energy on Guam.
So,
In
sir,
support of renewable energy.
we have a tremendous amount of renewable energy projects currently underway. So, of course, everyone is familiar with our 25 megawatt Dun facility that has been there for over about a decade. We have 40 megawatts of battery storage energy that should be deployed very soon. It's been delayed significantly because of the pandemic. People haven't been able to travel in order to commission that. We have 120 megawatts plus another 40 megawatts, so a total of 160 additional megawatts of renewable energy, specifically PV, that 120 of that has been awarded and the projects are underway. 40 of that was delayed because of an OPA appeal the OPA found in favor of GPA. The appeal has now proceeded to the court. So that's where it's at now. In addition to that, we have more renewable energy projects ready to go. Commissioner Bomba had specifically and correctly said that we're working very closely with the Department of Navy. So they have been a great ally, a great partner. And as far as reducing greenhouse gases, emissions, we are doing that, as you know, with our new power plant that's coming up. And so that will only use clean fuel. It's also going to be it's going to work a lot better with the renewable energy sources. We're focusing on utility scale renewable energy because, as again, Commissioner Bomba had said, we are very concerned, of course, about achieving our clean energy goals, but we need to keep it affordable. And so we're looking for that fine balance. And we have a great partnership as well with US DOI. Basil Otley, especially, you had mentioned the USVI project several years ago. That project was born because of an oil crisis in the Virgin Islands. And so we've both learned some lessons from the USVI. We've learned lessons from the island of Kauai, who leads Hawaii as far as all the islands in their renewable energy goals. So we are moving along. And in addition to that, as far as the energy policy is concerned, our IRP is our integrated resource plan, which is the energy master plan, if you will. That is underway as well. So my coworker, John Cruz, has that under his belt.
Thanks, Tracy. Yes, U.S. Department of Energy in the call and Interior Basil, they were really saying how much they've seen so much progress at Guam Power Authority. So we'll get in touch. Probably we're planning on trying to see how we can introduce this energy transitions initiative with just the kind of the lessons learned and what has happened in the other two jurisdictions, and give Guam Power Authority an opportunity to talk about all the progress that they're making on the renewable energy front as they integrate that and continue to develop the projects. I did have a chance the other day to take a look at the clearing that's been going on for the solar farm that you have up at Marbo, and it's a pretty big project, very exciting.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Governor, can I just add something?
Sure,
There was
Mary.
a hearing. There was a hearing they had the other day on Bill 219, which authorizes the public-private partnership for renewable energy for GDOE, GCC, UOG charter schools. And it didn't sound like there was going to be, or it didn't sound like there was a lot of support for it from the utility side, primarily because of the perhaps shifting the cost to the remaining ratepayers if we start to produce more energy. And so we just need to take a look at what that balance is going to be and how we can ensure that as organizations pursue renewable energy opportunities, that that there's not a fiscal impact on the other side for doing so. And so like I said, that was a little.
You're right on point. And then actually, I think the other part of it is, this is a partnership that we have to develop with Guam Power Authority, because although U.S. Department of Energy can come in and help with and provide technical support to the government, in terms of, coming up with specifications or making sure that if you're getting into renewable energy agreements with private producers, that that the government, or at least the organization, is making the best possible decision for themselves. But it's something for sure that we have to work in alignment with the utility. That's definitely came up in the conversation that we've had. So this convening that we'll do, Mary, it really came up because of the efforts at DOE and our desire as well to try and look at promote renewable energy in our public facilities, but understanding that GPA came up with, and the cost for this infrastructure has a lot of assumptions, including assumptions in the customer base of the island, right? And those are definitely things we have to look at. I imagine that's the reason why they've advocated certain things, including at the PUC, to try and I guess alter their policy on the independent power agreements and such. But yeah, there's a big policy issue that we need to get into, and I'm interested in using it as an opportunity to understand from Guam Power Authority where they're looking at, what they're seeing in the future, and of course how we factor in the additional load because of the military buildup and et cetera. I'm sure those were the assumptions that came into their planning when they were coming up with their current situation with the power plant. But I think that there's a lot of, I guess, Tracy, to summarize for us and the rest of the government, definitely a lot for us to understand and absorb what's going on with, the GPA initiatives, so that we're mindful of that as we go in and make our decisions or advocate or for or against any of the policies that are there to kind of support the renewable energy side or desire.
Yes, sir. We are ready if for review and discussion whenever you would like.
Great. Okay, Brent, is there, I think Tracy has, did a pretty good,
Yeah,
discussion on this. What I'd like to
Yeah.
do with the last remaining time, I'd just like to go to, we have Javen Santos, who is one of our youth ambassadors, had a question, and it's there in yours. I'll just read it. Had a question about zoning. Will zoning be looked into in regards to transportation and sustainable homes? A lot of affordable housing is placed in subdivisions that are far away from opportunities and jobs, leading to a requirement for a car, even if there are affordable housing. And lots of affordable housing subdivisions are built in a way where having only one bus stop per subdivision will leave some people far away from the bus stop as a disadvantage. Will we be able to look into zoning to see if we can zone to be more accessible to not only public transportation, but also walkability? So Javen, thank you for that question. Obviously, there is another group that is looking at some of these symmetries with regards to housing, but we have some smart engineers and people familiar with land use. Any responses to this question, Brent, maybe, or anybody else? I know Selb about to responded that GRTA and UOG are partnering to do a feasibility study on having let's call it an Uber-like transit system with some federal funds, just to focus down at Naval Station and Agate Santa Rita PD. So that's really narrowly looking at transportation needs for that portion of the island. But I think the bigger question, Javen, you're advocating is when we're doing housing, how do we plan for connecting transportation, right, to folks that that are maybe being underemployed or unemployed because they don't have access to that transportation?
Hi, this is Javen right now. And yeah, my question is regarding to zoning is basically about how do we, provide that access to those who are underemployed to not only not be able to afford the cars, or for those people who would prefer public transportation so that it's more, because it's more sustainable. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people on Guam right now who, if the public transportation was more accessible, or if they could walk to their place of employment, they would, but they can't always do that because their place of employment is too far, or not even to not only employment but also schools as well. I know places like Manilao and Tumuning are pretty walkable, but the rest of the villages, I'm just wondering, is zoning the problem here, or is there any other issues there in play as well?
Sel, do you have anything to add on that?
Lieutenant Governor, that's a very good question, sir. You know, the end result of our feasibility study with UOG, if it seems like it's profitable and viable to use Uber type transit system, then that's one of the outlook that we're focusing on. And let me just say that the trend now back in the States, in some cities that are similar to Guam, the Uber-like transit system is what's being used. And the reason for that is because the old ways of having transit system of having bus goes from one bus stop to another, with the hope of picking up riders. It's not fully effective. But with the Uber type transit system, when we send a van out to pick up a rider, then we know that van will be picking up a rider to where they're going to. So essentially, what we're looking at is in the final analysis of this study is that if it's profitable for Guam, then of course we like to pursue that, Governor, and offer it to you and the Governor, and we'll move on with that. But it's something that's being fully looked at back in the States. And the technology is there to ensure that that we fully utilize the vehicles that we put out to pick up riders.
So I would also suggest, I know that you're planning on having a focus group on as part of your planning efforts, and I think it'll be great to have some youth representation in there. And so maybe I'll ask Javen if we can. We'll get Rob Sinagasi from my chambers. Will contact Lauren to get your contact info so we can pass it on to Mr. Babalta. Because I think that's a good perspective in this planning effort.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Now, the other person is Boss Shills. Boss, are you still on with us?
Yes, sir.
Boss, why don't you go ahead and state your question? We do have Tracy Limchako from GPA, as you know, and of course, Mr. Babalta, but was your question regarding the park and ride station, or could you just clarify so we can get a good answer, the
Yes.
proper answer?
It was regarding the park and ride station. I just wanted to ask if the facilities will have like renewable energy integrated into the facilities, because I was under the impression that there would be like tax incentives for solar charging stations. Is that true?
Buzz, what
I heard
facilities are you speaking of? Are you speaking, which ones are you talking about?
The bus stations for the electrical vehicles.
Okay, I think that's Mr. Sell.
Yes, in designing the facility for the park and ride, definitely it's going to be a energy efficient facility. And renewable energy is part of the plan in the design and construction of that facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, boss. All right, team, I know we just went a little bit over time today. I know that Vince Ariola and Rebecca are co-leads also with Brent on this effort. And of course, extensive work being done on the waterworks front and power authority front. So I might want to just suggest that in your structure, you include some mechanism for you just to continue to get the updates from power and water, so we can include it in I think part of it is, basic knowledge to the community on all the good infrastructure improvements that are going on, and making sure also that, the nonprofit world, the community members are able to understand what's going on in the future, developers, landowners, those are all positive things. And that really is the purpose of this, is to identify all the areas that are in need, and of course, recognize the efforts that are being done. And that's kind of like, I think that's the beauty of this process is, making sure that we get more light on all of these areas, and also establish and expand community support for a lot of these initiatives. So thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Actually, I have a question. I'm sorry, I just popped in a little bit. My question is it possible if I have a little update on like Bill 167? Because I know I was reading a little bit about that. It was introduced and passed by the legislature, updating Guam's development plan, and it was vetoed by the governor. So is there any way that this committee would, like, what's the effects of that and how we're moving forward with G3 and especially with this committee?
So I guess Bill 167, I think the big issue for us is it had a 60-day deadline for a framework or a plan of action to be conducted, and there weren't any resources that were going to help with that. So we've asked Bureau of Statistics and Plans to come up with a proper strategy that we could adopt. I mean, I think that there's, I guess, Kyle, we probably having a comprehensive development master plan is a lot of moving parts in it. And I think that with just some tweaking, we'd be able to get that off and running. But I think, it didn't look like we were able to meet the requirements. 60 days is not a lot of time to come up with a strategy to undertake a master planning initiative. And I'll just say that there have been two comprehensive master plan programs in the past. A lot of money and work went into it, and then it wasn't approved by the legislature. So I think it's just one of those things where we need to try and align and have a better plan of action in order to kind of, but I think you're right, this is the proper area for us to undertake the discussion. There's no question that there needs to be improvements in the planning components for land use planning, but it is a big loaded question, and it requires a bit more work with the private sector and with the government sector to come up with the realistic strategy. Does anybody want to add on to that? I don't know, I'm sure everybody, a lot of people in here have been involved in things. And Kyle, I'll just tell you, a lot of people that got involved, they got so discouraged because they spend a year, 2 years mapping things out. And then when it goes back to the legislature for approval, it just kind of went down the drain. But I'll make this as a note and be happy to talk with you about it and see where we're going to go with that.
Thank you. I was just a little disappointed, and when I was looking at being a participant within the G3 initiative and seeing the veto, I didn't make the connections. But listening to the concerns, there's some more things to think about. But I'm hoping that there's a way that those things could be resolved, because the developmental plan is aligned with the G3 initiative, and something like that to already be set in law is important. You know, it will hold us accountable. And I think with this new term ending and the shift of you know, with the election, it'll be a little bit more difficult to pass some of these things. So I don't know. That was just one thing that came up to my mind, and I wanted to discuss it.
Yeah, and so I'll tell you that I know that Bureau of Statistics and Plans, which would have the dominant job to lead or coordinate such effort, I know that's ingrained in what they want to do. It's just trying to make sure that, you know, when legislation's passed, that we're able to comply with the law when there's no additional resources to be able to get it done. So it's almost, you know, we're going to agree to something we know that we're not going to meet. And so I think the discussion now is making sure that we have a good sustainable path forward so we can actually undertake a process and be realistic about what's going to be required to have a quality product and community engagement. Thanks, Kyle, for your question. All right, everybody, thank you for your time. Your work will continue, and then I think that we will meet again next week with another focus area. If there's no other questions, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Governor, do you mind if I provide a quick update? Sorry. I know we're over time, so I'll keep it short. So I'm working on a numbering structure or numbering system for our goals, so it will be easier to discuss and easier to revise. So I'm also trying to create a revision structure. Some of the teams were able to organize their team frameworks into categories, like this team's is organized by waste, power, transportation, thriving natural resources also organize theirs, but not every team is able to organize it. So we could try to further subcategorize every team's framework, or we could just leave it as a simple numbering system. So I could touch base with the team leads on this later, just to let you guys know that that's in the process right now, so we could have an easier way to revise and update the framework as we go along. Also, last week I spoke with Lola Leon Guerrero about the framework, and she brought up a very excellent point that the action items time window says fiscal year 20 to 21. And she said because of COVID and because of our process sort of being delayed a little, that it might be beneficial to push it back to fiscal year 21 to 22 to give us more time to achieve some of these goals. So I'm wondering if everyone agrees that we can just shift that to be 1 year later to give us more time and flexibility.
Can I ask
Okay.
just a simple, a fast question?
Sure.
I'm sorry. So all these ones that are highlighted in a different color, which is across, I guess, an intersection with another group. How are we managing that? Because some of these things got taken out of ours and then it said it's here, but it's not. I didn't even realize that some of the climate change stuff that you see my name all on the top. I was wondering where that went. So how are we supposed to understand that? How does that work? How does it work? Because now you combine them and stuff. Is it we just need to go to every single one of these tabs and see where the work that was assigned to our original group ended up being? What does that mean?
Yeah, so Vanjie, in the document I sent out most recently, so you're in the Thriving Natural Resources team.
Yes.
So if you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see, you know how I have these highlighted in green? If you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see those actual rows in your team's tab.
Right.
So sort of
but
like what Brent is showing here.
The first 5 or 6 lines are from the climate change group, and I'm assigned to that. So I didn't even know that that's where it ended up being.
Right. And I'm sorry if this wasn't clear when we first were explaining the restructuring of the teams. Climate change had brought up the climate action team, which was solely focused on climate action. It seemed that it would be best to disperse some of the goals throughout the other teams, because some seem to focus more on infrastructure, some focused more on education, some focused on natural resources. So to best align it with the agencies that were involved, those were dispersed.
Okay, so does that mean I don't have to do those now?
I think we negotiate.
Okay.
Yeah, we negotiate if it makes sense to keep it where they got put, or if it should go back to where it was. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I need to look at all the tabs. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Vanjie.
So Vanjie, you should be able to look at your team's tab and just scroll to the bottom, and all those things that seem to pertain to like climate action should be there as well.
Okay.
So sorry for the confusion.
Okay, thank
you. Feel free to send me an email and we could talk about it. Okay, and one last update. I'm communicating with Hawaii Green Growth to schedule a presentation on the dashboard. So they are looking to hire someone to be their dashboard coordinator, which will help us be able to develop our dashboard locally. So they're working with Esri right now, and they're going to hire someone, and they anticipate to have their new dashboard up and running and their dashboard coordinator all situated by January. So it looks like for now, we'll be able to have a better understanding of what the dashboard components will be and what will be needed and how we could use it. We'll do that soon, and then we could work on our dashboard in the beginnings of next year. So I will be sending out some updates on when that presentation will be.
Thank you, Lauren.
And that's my update. Thank you, Lieutenant
All
Governor.
right. Have a safe day, everybody. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody.